Seattle, 6:12 a.m. The kitchen was so quiet, Daniel Harper could hear every beat of his own heart. He stood frozen by the dining table. A cup of coffee was still steaming, but he couldn't bring himself to pick it up. On the table lay a single note, short, cold, unsigned. I need to live for myself. Don't wait. Lisa? His voice came out hoarse. No answer. He rushed upstairs. The closet doors were wide open. Half her clothes were gone. The familiar suitcase was no longer in the corner. No? What is happening? He grabbed his phone and dialed. Lisa, pick up. Where are you? Beep, then silence. The call was blocked. His heart pounded harder as he opened his banking app. Balance $0. That's impossible. The transaction history appeared. Withdrawals made overnight, clean, precise. Daniel slowly turned, scanning the house. Everything looked the same. Yet something felt deeply, disturbingly empty. A photo frame lay face down. He picked it up. Underneath it was a small USB drive. Lisa, what are you hiding from me? In the days that followed, Daniel Harper lived like a shadow of himself. At 6 a.m., he still woke up on time. Boiled water, brewed coffee, set 2 cups on the table, one for him, one for someone who was no longer there. Just a habit, he muttered, though no one had asked. At night, the hallway light stayed on. The door remained slightly ajar, as if waiting for someone to come home. But there were no footsteps, no Lisa. One afternoon, as rain tapped steadily against the window, Daniel sat reviewing what was left of his accounts. Not out of hope, but to understand. And then he saw it. An old transaction, a joint investment he had almost forgotten, liquidated 3 weeks ago. No, that's not possible. He kept scrolling. Legal documents, electronic signatures. Lisa, the signing date before she left. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. You planned this. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a perfect exit. Right then, the doorbell rang. He frowned and walked over to open it. A woman stood on the porch, her hair damp from the rain, holding 2 cups of coffee. I'm Emily, your new neighbor. Daniel said nothing. She gave a small smile and placed 1 cup in his hand. If you ever need coffee, I'm right next door. No questions, no curiosity, no pity, just there. The door closed, but Daniel's eyes lingered on the warm cup in his hand. In a world that had just collapsed, someone had arrived at exactly the right moment, and that was no coincidence. Daniel didn't want to talk to anyone, especially not a stranger, but Emily Carter didn't disappear like everyone else. She didn't knock a second time, didn't text, didn't try. She just kept showing up at the right moments. Once, he stepped outside to take out the trash. She was there. You're Daniel Harper, right? She asked. He paused. You know me? Emily shrugged. Just heard about you. But the way she said it was too light, too intentional. You used to be an architect? She continued. Daniel frowned. Used to. Oh, she nodded. I don't really know much about that stuff. A sentence, too simple, but her eyes weren't, as if she knew more but chose not to say. It made Daniel uncomfortable. And strangely, it made him stay longer in those brief conversations. One evening, when the rain returned, Daniel sat on the front steps. Emily walked over and sat beside him. No questions, no words, just silence. And for the first time, Daniel broke down. No control, no restraint. 30 years, he whispered. She disappeared like she never existed. Emily didn't touch him, didn't comfort him. She just stayed. Her silence wasn't empty. It felt like a place where he could fall without being judged. And that made Daniel, the man who trusted no one, start to trust her, in a dangerous way. Time passed, but it no longer stood still. Daniel began fixing up the house, repainting the walls, replacing light bulbs, clearing out Lisa's room. Every item, every memory. Are you erasing her? Emily asked once. No, Daniel replied. I'm understanding her. Emily nodded, something flickering across her eyes for just a moment, like pain, like memory. One evening, Daniel accidentally noticed Emily's old file on her kitchen table. He didn't mean to, but he read it. Divorce, loss of custody, a short note. Child deceased, accident. Daniel froze. When Emily walked in, he didn't ask. He just looked at her. You lost someone too, he said quietly. Emily stood still for a few seconds. Not lost, she replied. Taken. That sentence didn't sound like grief. It sounded like an accusation. A long silence followed, but from that moment on, they understood each other. No explanations, no details. Daniel started cooking for real again, not 2 portions, just 1, and sometimes an extra chair at the table. One night, his phone lit up, an unknown number. He looked at it. then turned the screen off. No hesitation. Emily saw. "You're not going to answer?" Daniel shook his head. "There's nothing left to wait for." Emily gave a faint smile. "You don't have to live for someone who left." Daniel didn't reply. But for the first time in weeks, he didn't look back at his phone, didn't wait, didn't hope. Just something inside him had shifted. But was it truly letting go, or just a more sophisticated way of lying to himself? The wedding ring sat in Daniel's palm, cold, heavier than he remembered. He stood at the counter of a small pawn shop, the fluorescent lights washing everything in a pale, lifeless glow. "You sure about this?" the owner asked, peering at him through cloudy glasses. Daniel nodded. "It's just an object." 30 years isn't just, the man muttered. Daniel didn't respond. He placed the ring down. The moment it left his hand, felt like losing a part of his body. That night, he sat in front of his computer. Hundreds of photos, birthdays, anniversaries, embraces. Lisa smiled in every frame, a version of her he was no longer sure was real. Daniel moved the cursor. Delete, delete, delete. "I'm sorry," he whispered, not sure who he was saying it to. An old folder appeared. Drafts. He didn't remember ever opening it. Inside, an email. Sender, Lisa. Never sent. Daniel opened it. "I was never happy." Just one sentence. No explanation, no ending. The screen reflected his face, empty. "So, was it all fake?" he asked, his voice breaking. The memories began to fracture. The long silences, the dinners without conversation, the averted glances he had ignored. It wasn't her leaving that destroyed everything. Everything had been dead for a long time. He collapsed onto the desk, shoulders shaking. This time there was no anger, no questions, just an ending. Emily stood in the doorway. How long she had been there, he didn't know. She didn't step closer, didn't touch him, just said softly, "Some things don't break in a single day." Daniel didn't look up. "Then why didn't I see it?" Emily answered after a long pause. "Because you didn't want to." That answer wasn't comforting, but it was the truth. And strangely, it allowed Daniel to breathe. That night, they sat beside each other in silence. No promises, no future. Just two people, left behind after everything had ended. And somewhere deep inside, a question began to form. Can someone who's been shattered ever love again? Time didn't heal Daniel. It rebuilt him. The house slowly changed. New walls, warmer light, no trace of a former life. Emily showed up more often, not intrusive, just there. One morning, she placed a pregnancy test on the table. 2 lines, no explanation, no drama. Daniel stared at it for a long time. "Are you okay?" he asked. Emily nodded. "Are you?" He thought for a few seconds. "No panic, no hesitation. We're going to do this the right way." Emily looked at him as if testing whether he truly understood what he had just said. "You sure?" she asked. "No," Daniel answered honestly, "but I'm not running." That answer was enough. In the days that followed, Daniel began to prepare, doctor's appointments, rearranging the house, and then he sat across from a lawyer. "I want to update my will." The lawyer looked up. "Beneficiary?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Emily Carter and the baby." "And your wife?" A pause. Daniel looked out the window. There's no one there anymore. He signed his name, a clean cut from the past. No turning back, no hesitation. But as he stepped out of the office, his phone vibrated. An email. No subject, no sender name. Just a single line. "You signed faster than I expected." Daniel froze on the sidewalk. His fingers tightened around the phone. His breathing slowed. The past doesn't disappear. It just waits for the right moment to come back. Daniel's phone vibrated just as dusk settled in. An unknown number. He stared at it for a few seconds, then opened the message. "Daniel, I want to come home." His heart skipped. No name, no signature, but he knew. "Lisa, 11 months. Not a single call, not a single explanation. And now, just one sentence, as if nothing had ever happened. He set the phone down on the table. No reply, no reaction, but his hand tightened until his knuckles turned white. Emily stepped out of the kitchen, watching him. "Who is it?" Daniel looked up, his voice unnaturally calm. The past, a beat of silence. Then the doorbell rang. Once, firm. Daniel didn't move. The bell rang a second time, slower, more patient. Emily looked at him. He looked back. Neither of them spoke. The doorbell rang a third time, longer, like a quiet declaration. Whoever was outside wasn't leaving. Daniel took a deep breath, but he didn't step forward. Emily turned. Step by step, she walked toward the door. Her hand rested on her stomach instinctively. Daniel stood behind her, didn't stop her, didn't call her name, just watched. Emily's hand touched the doorknob and turned. The door opened. Lisa stood there. No luggage, no tears, just a woman, staring straight at the home she once left behind. Her eyes landed on Emily, then drifted downward. A hand resting on her stomach, a small detail, but enough to change everything. "He's here?" Lisa asked. Emily gave a slight nod. "He is." No defensiveness, no tension, just a simple answer, as if this were her home. Lisa stepped halfway inside, then stopped. She looked around, new photos on the walls, none of her, soft music playing from the living room, not the songs she used to like, the smell of food in the kitchen, not anything she used to cook. Everything was still this house. But it was no longer her life. Lisa began softly, but the words caught in her throat. Emily said nothing. She simply stood there. Her presence was clear enough. Lisa looked at her again. The shock in her eyes was gone, replaced by realization. No one had replaced her. No one had taken her place. She had walked out herself and closed the door from the outside. Daniel appeared behind Emily, slowly, unhurried. His gaze settled on Lisa. No anger, no love, just calm. "I want to come back," Lisa said, almost a whisper. Daniel looked at her for a few seconds, as if searching for an old feeling, but nothing returned. "I hope you find what you went looking for." Lisa blinked. "That's it?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at the house, then at Emily, then back at Lisa. "Yes." One word, but it was everything. No argument, no holding on, no second chances. Lisa stood there for a few more seconds, as if waiting for something to happen, but nothing did. Finally, she turned away. Stepped down the porch. No tears, no looking back, just empty. The door closed behind her. Daniel stood still for a few seconds, his hand still resting on the doorknob, as if checking whether he had really done it. Then he let go, no hesitation, no regret. This time, he was the one who chose to walk away, not from the house. In the room behind him, the music still played, soft, steady, like a new life, that wasn't waiting for anyone to return. And maybe the most painful thing isn't being left behind, but realizing the door you walked out of is no longer open.